Hello world. It's Monday, but I didn't have a case of the Mondays, I had a case of the great days. I was able to articulate my floating experience to the best of my recollection, and I discovered some new music over the weekend that really added to the overall positivity of the week break. The music is by a band called Pomplamoose, funny name, but very talented artists. They're a duo, male/female band. I bought their second album and really enjoyed their covers of a lot of great songs. They have such a unique spin on music. Here's is my absolute favorite song from their album Season 2, it's called, The Internet is Awesome and You Know What, It Is. Now, that was a great song, wasn't it? So on to the interest-free money. I think it's fairly safe to say that the majority of the informed population knows that the Federal Reserve System prints the United States of America's currency. They have the exclusive, monopolistic right to do this. Funny thing is, they create this money out of thin air. Don't believe me? Go to my post called, Dear Mr. President, and the Fed. There is a book there that I recommend. So, here's how it works in a nutshell. The US Treasury needs more money, and sells bonds to buyers on the market, and oftentimes the Federal Reserve System will purchase these bonds/debt, or sometimes other countries. For instance, China. The Federal Reserve System gives the US Treasury paper currency in exchange for this debt, bond, for which interest begins to accrue on the bond. So in summation, the Federal Reserve does not actually have anything of real value to back up the currency, but their return on investment is very, very real. It is time, labor, and the fruits of said labor. The Federal Reserve also sells this money to banks across the nation, at interest. Right now, the interest is near 0%, however, this will change when the timing is right. That said, the USA has before printed its own money before, interest-free. Recently a silver certificate came into our possession, and it's a rare, shining example of a free nation being the captain of its own destiny. Here is the comparison. One is a silver certificate, which is redeemable in silver if so desired, but rarely is this ever usually the case. The good thing about such a currency is that the certificate is created for the good of the public, in that some manner of transaction is required to live, and the government is facilitating a reduced friction manner for transactions by providing an agreed upon method of value assigned certificates. The certificates do not serve to fatten the pockets of the federal government because the people borrow the money in order to have currency to conduct transactions. They serve to facilitate a healthy, functional economy, and because it's interest-free money, it supports the creation of new wealth, thereby making the nation that much more valuable in terms of our product and our potential. The other is a Federal Reserve note. It's not redeemable for anything, and only serves to be accepted as currency because that's the lie in which we all participate. As long as we keep believing in the lie, then the game continues. The bad thing about the lie is that the United States can never, ever pay down the national debt to $0, because if they did, they would have no currency in circulation. Let me make an example. Let's say there was absolutely $0 in circulation. Just suspend disbelief for a moment. The US needs $10 billion in currency, so it sells $10 billion in US bonds, debt, to the Fed, and the Fed gives the US $10 billion in various denominations of Federal Reserve note bills to use it as it wishes, with 10% interest. As the Fed is loaning the USA money, and printing its currency, do they have anything to back up the money they just printed? No, it's called fractional reserve banking. The only currency the USA is technically allowed to create is minting coinage with precious/semi-precious metals. However, the USA is not going to pay back the owed interest in coinage, obviously, so in order to pay back the $1 billion in interest, the USA collects money in taxes from the citizenry via the IRS, which is an arm of the Federal Reserve System. When this is not enough, as is always the case, to cover the interest, and the USA needs more money, they sell more US bonds, debt, to the Fed, so the USA spends its $10 billion of its $10 billion loan, and collects $9 billion in taxes. Now the USA wants to pay off the load plus interest, and it needs to make up the difference for that $2 billion owed to the Fed, $1 billion of which is just for borrowing the funny money, $1 billion for the difference owed as compared to what's collected in taxes, and $1 billion in interest. While we're at it, let's take out another loan to cover the cost of running a country, as if it's some sort of corporation, which it is, technically now. So it borrows another $12 billion this time, pays $1 billion of this to the Fed to cover the interest, and has $11 billion to fiscally operate. Obviously in reality it is not this clear-cut, but the rules are the rules as I have described them. Do you see where this is going? It's a tailspin, and is impossible to ever get out of debt with such a pyramid scheme. The USA has to keep borrowing an ever-increasing amount of money to not only pay the interest that is accruing on money that never really existed in the first place, but it also needs to continue to expand the monetary supply for its growing economy. The funny thing is the money that is paid to the Federal Reserve System is real money, it's real value, it's the fruits of our labor. In essence, this system is a system of reverse exchange of value. I give your nation money that has no monetary value or backing, and in exchange, you pay me back principal with interest, and if you default, I get to possess the results of your labor, intellectual property, and physical property. I own you, see that? It's a Shakespeare deal. It's a form of slavery. Additionally, if there isn't enough money in the economy to adjust with a growing economy, economic growth will slow down, deflation will generally occur first, and then a depression starts to kick in. So the USA is absolutely obligated to take upon more interest accruing debt to keep the economic engine running, so that it can collect its yearly interest payment to hand over to the Federal Reserve System through the IRS, because if it doesn't, well, that has never really happened, because the Fed just rolls over the old loan into a new loan, but in doing so has more leverage over the physical property rights, and all that I described above is centralized as collateral. As part of the deal, it's scientific, it's calculated, and it's criminal. In fact, one of the deals that the USA has with the Federal Reserve System, which is comprised of top appointees from megabanks, and megabanks, is that if the banks default on their bad deals, for example, the mortgage crisis of 2007/2008, then the American taxpayer, for example, you and me, are on the hook by default to bail them out to cover their losses facilitated through their gambling of the USA taxpayers' money. They have absolutely no risk involved with being risky, and how do you? And I feel this thievery. Through the hidden tax of inflation, things start to cost more, volume of product starts to shrink, but you're paying the same price as before. You follow? How about them apples? It's a slow usurpation of the United States of America via control of the nation's monetary policy. Quote, let me issue and control a nation's money and I care not who writes the laws. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, 1744-1812, founder of the House of Rothschild. The bank hath benefit of interest on all monies which it creates out of nothing. William Patterson, founder of the Bank of England in 1694, then a privately owned bank. Chew on that for a little bit. I will in the future expound more on this topic. I'm dropping the mic on this one. For now, have a great day.